All right, we now have joining us. It is Brad Guzan of Atlanta United, who is coming back from a big time injury. Brad, first off, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you making time. I know it's preseason. I know that's a busy, difficult time for you. I guess first things first, like how sick are you of talking about coming back from injury? Like I imagine you're over it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Anytime you have a significant injury, right? It's that question is always going to come up, and it's been good. I mean, I feel good. I feel ready. I've been able to partake in all activities in terms of training and what's being asked of the goalkeepers, but then also just the team sessions and whatnot. So I think if you ask our medical department, I medically cleared myself probably going back to last September or so, but
Mhm.
they're happy for me to be back out on the field and in with the group, as same with Miles, and so it's been good. It's been a long 9 months, but the light at the end of the rainbow is certainly upon me.
Yeah, man. And I remember when it happened, I think I got an alert on my phone. And whenever I see an injury to an athlete, especially in Major League Soccer, since I work amongst everybody, it's like I always say Major League Soccer is why I've got a roof and a nice house for my family. And, my heart drops because my dad was a sports broadcaster, still is semi-retired, been around athletes my entire life. Made me think of when Marv's career unexpectedly came to an end, albeit his was a different issue, but we can say that both you and him share the non-contact issue. But just, you go back to that point, this long in your career, you've never had these injuries or, anything big to speak of. I'm sure you had some achy joints and some other minor nagging things, but no major injuries. I mean, do you think you were better equipped to handle it later in your life as it is? Because, I mean, I guess it's better to get injured when you're young. You probably heal a little bit faster, but your mental strength is probably that much better now as a 38-year-old, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, I remember when the night it happened, I was pretty ticked off. I knew exactly what I had done before the trainers had even got out onto the field to reach me, right? And so I knew I'd torn it. It hurt for maybe a handful of seconds, and then the frustration and the anger set in, and
Hmm.
that's why I was so disappointed. And you go through obviously a wave of different emotions, but I told myself by the time I got into the training room that was the step. That was day one. That was step one of the recovery process. And I couldn't change what had happened. I couldn't go back in time and replay the game and take that part of it out. So it is what it is. And I think my mental strength was tested at times, definitely.
Hmm.
But my support system around me has been fantastic, going from my wife and my kids, all the way down to the support staff and the medical staff here at the club. Everyone has been fantastic with the process, and so that's allowed me to get back out on the field and feel normal and feel that I'm able to compete again at a high level.
Did you ever have doubts, or were you just kind of in it from day number one? Like, no, I'm coming back from this.
Yeah, I mean, it was always that was always my mindset. That was always my motivation. Of course, you read things on social media, and not that I sit there and spend half the day reading different comments, but you hear what people are saying, and of course, when you're 37 and you tear your Achilles, it's, oh, this is going to be the end of him. This is, he's finished, and this and that, and I didn't want my story to finish like that, and so
Hmm.
I don't know how my story will finish, but I knew that was not the ending that I wanted. And so every single day, getting up, whether it be going in for rehab, going in for treatment, um, doing the things that, are just boring and tedious, that, aren't any fun. And you want to be helping the guys, especially the year that we had as a team and as a club. You want to be on the field with your brothers and helping them and be there in difficult moments. And I couldn't do that. And so that part added frustration, added anger to my process and my recovery. But at the same time, I knew that I had to follow those steps that were being given to me to give myself the best chance of being where I am now, and that's back out on the field playing.
Terrible question, but was there something nice about having Miles there going through it as well, to where you had somebody to relate to? If even if that's the most negative framing I can ever come up with.
Yeah, I mean, it's we laugh and joke about it, right? Because it was Ozzy Alonso tore his ACL the week
Mhm.
before I did my Achilles. We had another goalkeeper at the time who had an Achilles as well, and then Miles did his Achilles after me, and so there were four of us with these long-term injuries, and then you throw in the odd guy that was, with he was out for 6 weeks with a muscle injury or a ligament injury or something like that. And so our medical room was quite full at times throughout the year last year. And but we didn't let that get us down. We used each other as motivation, as
Mhm.
to push each other to be in the gym, doing our exercises. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of calf raises I've done in the last 9 months, man. But to be able to have someone kind of going through the same thing and bounce questions off him and say, hey,
Mhm.
how are you feeling today? Or how, when you do those types of exercises, what do you feel? Because there's no clear cut, hey, you're going to feel this, you're going to feel that. It's I may feel something different than he does when he does a certain movement or exercise. And so just being able to bounce those ideas kind of off each other, I think certainly helped.
In terms of the 45 minutes you played last week, I want to touch on more on that in a second, but how different, or does it not feel different, does your body feel when you played those 45 last week versus a year ago in the preseason when you were at the same process doing the build up and playing them half and getting ready for the start of a season?
Yeah, I mean, going into last week, it was obviously, I said to our medical staff afterwards, there were a lot of emotions going into it. As the entire MLS, our entire MLS family has mourned, the passing of Anton
Mhm.
and Anton Walks and what he meant to our club. And so wearing the Anton Walks, the AW armbands and being out on the field, kind of representing him and what he meant to our team and our club, that part was emotional. The fact that, after 9 months, I'm back on the field in a competitive game, that was emotional.
Mhm.
Um, and so you don't take for granted those types of moments. And so I know the performance wasn't great, for myself and or the group, and so we know there's room for improvement. But afterwards, I was able to almost smile at the fact that I am on the field and
Mhm.
I am able to say, well, that was a bad decision or that was a terrible play and that needs to be better. But for me to be back out on the field competing and to do it with Miles in that moment, that was a special day for us.
Yeah, I would imagine, man. And I would imagine that was probably one of those things where you're happy with yourself that you can be angry at your performance and be like, oh, I didn't like how I played that ball. I didn't like how this went down. Like, I'm sure it probably took you a little bit during the 45 minutes and then afterwards to process all of it. Maybe you still are processing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything you just, instantly stop processing, right? You're constantly looking at ways to get better, whether it be from games or whether it be from training sessions. The conversations that are constantly ongoing with the coaching staff, with the medical staff, with your teammates, just about how the group is. I know that I'm strong enough. I know that my Achilles is repaired. I know that it's as strong as it ever will be, and so I think there's certainly a time period that you go through with these types of injuries, these long-term injuries, of trying to gain that trust back from your own body and trying to realize that, hey, you are okay and you can go out there and do your thing and not have to think about it. And I think every time I'm able to step on the field in a competitive game, that gets closer and closer to 100%, if especially if we're not already there.
You don't have to say if you are going to be starting. Do you feel like you would be ready to start by the 25th, or do you think there is still work to do?
I mean, listen. I think there's definitely work to be done. But I also know my work ethic. I know the type of work that the coaches, especially our goalkeeping coach Liam, he puts into our sessions to have us ready to make sure that the understanding of me coming off of, you know, again, I've been training with him probably since September or so,
Mhm.
outside, and so going through all of those individual sessions and making sure that come February 25th, that's the goal, that's the ultimate end goal, to make sure that I'm available for selection and can be out on the field and hopefully help the team. And so I know, with all things considered, that's certainly going to be realistic. Obviously, for me, it's a continuation of a long, a very long process, but that's the end goal, and it's right around the corner. So I'm excited by where I'm at, physically, mentally. I feel good, I feel ready, and so the 25th, hopefully, all things considered, and fingers crossed, we'll be ready to rock and roll.
Other changes in the franchise this offseason, Joseph Martinez departing, of course, a huge part of the club and its limited history up to this point, one of those founding members like yourself. And then you also look at Garth coming in and taking in a new role up top. How is that, both of those transitions, how have those been?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first and foremost, obviously, you look at Joseph and what he means to Atlanta United, what he's done for this club, what he's done for the city. There's no, replacing Joseph. What he was able to do while he was here with this jersey on, was nothing short of spectacular. And so, that's obviously, someone that will be missed. But at the same time, I think we all understand, as we sign up for this occupation, this job of professional sports, that these things happen in professional sports, and it is what it is. Obviously, we shook hands, we gave each other hugs, and we wish each other well. But I know that obviously when he's lined up against me,
Mhm.
it's going to be a competitive fight, and I know it'll be the same for him. And that's just the competitive nature of professional athletes, right? And you mentioned Garth obviously coming in, and you look at his track record, what he was able to do not only in Seattle, but all going back to Salt Lake, and someone that knows the league, someone that understands what it takes to be successful, what it takes to be at the top, not only from a soccer standpoint, but from an absolute like entire club standpoint.
Mhm.
And so to have him be at the top of our franchise, I think is only going to create more positive outcomes, and a positive trickle effect as it worked its way down into the front office, as it worked its way into the players and the soccer side of things. So I think we're all excited about the new horizons ahead.
I wanted to ask you about the place of collegiate soccer in the modern American soccer system, because so many kids are rushing into academies, and it's becoming a more, I won't say the prominent pipeline, but it's becoming more and more prominent in the system. But like, you had South Carolina. I was talking to JT Marcinkowski about his time at Georgetown. There's a number of different athletes that I've talked to who appreciate, what they were able to do in college. And they think that, maybe if a kid isn't ready at 15 or 16, then yeah, like that shouldn't be where a guy's career ends. Some athletes do need more times to mature. And I want to say, if memory serves me correct, you weren't even just a goalie until college, right?
Yeah, I played as an outfield player for my club team, the Chicago Magic, up until I was 17, and obviously went to college and was a goalkeeper there, and was there at South Carolina for a year and a half. But going back to what you touched on, I think it's so important that every player, every athlete, regardless of age, um, tries to find their own path, because not everyone has the same path to success, the same path to professional soccer, or professional sports in general.
Mhm.
Everyone is going to be different, and that's because we're all different, and that's what makes the world a beautiful place. That's what makes soccer such a beautiful game, right? And so, whether somebody's ready at 14 to go overseas to a European club, or whether that player at 22 is now ready to break into the MLS as a undrafted, free agent sort of thing, right? It's everybody has their own story to tell, and so it's not up to me to say to some 15 or 16-year-old kid that you have to do this or have to do that, or you have to go to college. I think everyone has to find their own pathway to success, whether that's on the field or off the field.
You're no stranger to the United States men's national team. When things were ending at the end of the year, I asked Joe Cannon about, how do you figure out the coaching situation? His take was, who do the guys want to play for? And he wasn't saying that as a vote of confidence for Greg or against Greg. And there were more things that had come out since then. But do you agree with that assessment, that as much as the top brass at U.S. Soccer wants to be in charge of that decision, that the players have to be consulted on, maybe first and foremost, on who they want to play for? How do you even go about making that decision at this point?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's obviously a tough decision, right? It's not one to be taken lightly. I think the one part that we have an advantage of, especially going into 2026, is the fact that we've already qualified. And so I think when you look at it from the federation standpoint, they're in no rush or hurry to appoint someone just to appoint someone. They want to make sure they get this hire correctly, and they want to make sure that it's someone that can not only lead the group in the short term, but also obviously going into 2026. What they don't want is to bring someone in and then in 12 months realize it was the wrong hire, and now all of a sudden they're scratching their head, and now it becomes a bit of a panic station
Mm-hmm.
hire, and now they're scrambling. So I think they're going to take their time. In terms of speaking with players, I think they will speak to players. I don't think that will be the end all be all decision, because as we all know in this game, players come, players go.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's at a club level, we talk about the Joseph Martinez situation earlier,
Yeah.
and so players come and players go. And so I guarantee you that there's players right now that will be on the 2026 roster for the World Cup that we're not talking about, that we
Right.
don't know about, right? And so there will be players that will develop in the next 4 years and be playing at the highest level, and be selected for that World Cup team that you and I aren't speaking about right now. And so it's hard to then say, well, I'm gonna take player X, Y, and Z, and I'm gonna take their word that they want to play for this guy. But then players A, B, C, D, E, F, they don't like that guy, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's you can't go and ask every single player in the player pool, because you're probably not going to get a unanimous decision on who they should hire. Because like I said, players' careers, they're up and down, and players move on, and so I think they can take that into consideration, but I don't think that will be the final. That's what is going to make the final decision.
Well, Brad, man, I know you've got stuff to do, so I will let you go, but I'm so very happy we're talking about your career and this stage and it being the build up to game number 1 of February 25th between the Earthquakes and Atlanta, and that you're part of this process getting ready for a new season, because there were no guarantees last April, man. So do it as long as you can. I think that's the best advice I can give. I did appreciate you in the broadcast booth, but I was like, nah, give it a little bit more time. I want to see him back out there. But thank you, Brad, and we'll talk soon. All right, man.
Absolutely appreciate it. Take care.